The 2025 Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit is set to open today in Tianjin, drawing over 20 leaders to deliberate on key global issues. In the latest developments at the SCO summit in Tianjin, Russian President Vladimir Putin has met Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, while Chinese President Xi Jinping held talks with the President of Kyrgyzstan. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi has described his meeting with Vietnam's Prime Minister Pham Minh Chinh as very productive, emphasizing India's interest in deepening cooperation in defense, trade, and green energy. China's Vice Premier met with ASEAN Secretary General N. Xi and has stressed that the SCO must take on greater responsibilities to safeguard peace and promote development in an uncertain world. On the sidelines, Xi and Modi have agreed that China and India are partners rather than rivals, reinforcing regional cooperation. This year's summit comes against the backdrop of rising global conflicts, U.S. tariffs on India, and growing digital security threats. Leaders are expected to deliberate on energy counterterrorism and regional stability while projecting the SCO as a non-Western power bloc. Now, for this discussion, we are joined by guest retired Major General Sanjay Meston. He's a defense and geopolitical expert, joins us live from New Delhi. And also Scott Faulkner, he's the head of Eagle Enterprises, a security firm from Washington, D.C. And we have Muhammad Osman, he's an international relations specialist, joins us live from Cairo. Thank you very much for everybody to joining us today from across the world. Now, I would like to go to Major General first. Now, with India emphasizing strategic autonomy amid the rising U.S. tariffs, so how does it balance ties with both China and the West through platforms like the SCO?
Yeah, very important issue you have raised. How does India balance its ties with the West and important platforms like SCO and BRICS? Firstly, we have to accept certain ground realities. The ground realities is China is one of our most important neighbors. And of course, we have a very nuisance neighbor in a vicinity on the west, that is Pakistan. And we have got other neighboring countries with whom we generally have got good relations, and sometimes it is blow hot and blow cold. But by and large, we are managing relations very, very well. Now, in case of China and Pakistan, they have been all-weather allies, and we are aware that during Operation Sindoor, China has supported them. Number two, the CPEC corridor is, of course, passing through Pakistan. And whenever India has raised the issue of, designating these terrorists of Jaish-e-Mohammed, all these terrorist groups as global terrorists in the UN Security Council, obviously this is vetoed by China. And another important factor with China is, of course, the unresolved borders with China and India. So these are very, very contentious issues. And I think this is where the whole balancing act of India has to be, that we have to maintain, considering our strategic autonomy, good relations with everyone. And today, India is that nation. We are in communication with Israel. We are in touch with Zelensky. Basically, Ukraine, we are in touch with Russia, we are in touch with China, and we are in touch with America. However, of late, President Trump, because he has now thought of Asim Munir as his partner, and especially after the massacre of, the Pahalgam attack and Op Sindoor, he had called him and hosted him for a meal, and which I think does not augur well for a nation like United States. Firstly, in protocol-wise, it does not befit. Number two, a terrorist nation's head of the army has been called and, given unnecessary importance and due importance. Now, considering this factor, this has been a very, very important factor that today when Trump is aligning with Pakistan, number two, unnecessarily it is imposing this penalty of 25% and overall tariffs of 50% on India. He is equating us to Brazil, where again he has imposed 50% tariffs. And in the entire neighborhood, imagine a country, Pakistan, is just 19%. And most of the countries, whether it is Vietnam, Bangladesh, etc., it is generally 19%, including China, who's the largest importer of US oil, the Russian oil. Again, the tariffs are very less in comparison to India. So therefore, what does this reflect? This reflects, I think President Trump wants us that we should now start aligning or move towards the camp of the SCO or the BRIC, which is not in the interest of, I would not use the word United States because United States has a better policy. Unfortunately, they have a leader, President Trump, who is not even hearing of his aides or anyone, and he just wants to do what he feels is right. He's not a
Yes.
statesman. So he is harming the relationship which was established between India and America over a period of 25 years. So what
Yes.
I foresee is that
Major
India,
General, thank you
yeah.
very much for sharing that. Now, from building on your answer about the relationship that India and US has developed, I would like to ask questions from Scott. Thank you, Scott, again for waiting and staying with us. Scott, with India and China emphasizing partnership over rivalry at this summit, how should Washington interpret these developments in terms of its Indo-Pacific strategy? Do you think this challenges US's efforts to position India as a strategic counterweight to China before?
It is very complex. Modi and Xi had over an hour meeting, one-on-one, and their foreign ministers also met. And so it's going to be interesting to see if anything real comes from that. And certainly the pageantry of this, of the SCO summit, will that translate into policy? We'll see. Right now, everybody's still talking in very lofty terms. People are still talking very vaguely about the future. It's always nice to say everyone should be cooperative, everyone should be settling things peacefully, everyone should be seeking more economic integration and more trade. But will this translate into anything very specific? That's still to be seen. In terms of the US and the SCO summit, the US has obviously done a lot of things that are perplexing not only to India and to the world, but to a lot of us in the United States. India and the United States have had a warm relationship. Certainly personally, Modi and Trump have had very warm relations going back to his first term, and yet we're seeing this singling out almost of India for these very damaging tariffs.
Thank you very much, Scott, for sharing that.
So,
Mohammed, now I would like to come to our guest, Mohammed. Mohammed, thank you very much for joining us and waiting and staying with us. Now, how do you view this SCO? Do you think that this is a strong enough bloc to counter Western alliances?
Thank you for having me, and greetings to you, your audience, and your honorable guests. I wouldn't go as far as it being a counterweight to established Western-dominated institutions, which the major countries in the SCO, in the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, or BRICS, or any other entity formed by the Global South or powers in the East, most of them also are very well integrated in those states in Western-dominated institutions. So they are an effort to push for a more diversification of the institutional framework of the international system. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization has very promising prospects, yet we should never forget that this organization existed since the mid-1990s. And so far, the effectiveness of this organization has always been limited to some sort of security cooperation between some even of the member countries, and not all of them, and also some forms of economic cooperation that is basically based on the
Thank you very much to all our guests for joining us. That was Mohammed and Scott and Major General. The Ministry of External Affairs of India is now holding a special briefing on Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's